Every 15 minutes, a newborn comes into this world already fighting withdrawal from opioids. But what if, instead of judgment and shame, they were met with love, compassion, and revolutionary care? Today, we dive deep with Tara Sundum. She's the co-founder of Hushabye Nursery, an extraordinary haven dedicated to healing infants born into addiction while empowering families to break cycles of trauma. This conversation is going to change how you see addiction, motherhood, and I believe hope itself. Let's get started. Thank you, Tara, for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Your intro was great. I
That's
can't wait to
awesome.
listen.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, I want to kind of go over, I know you've devoted over 30 years to newborns, and we're going to go through your story here and struggling with NAS. What initially drew you to these vulnerable babies, and what kind of keeps that passion burning after 30 years?
Yeah. Well, I initially, graduated college, I wanted to work with kids and ended up finding myself in the neonatal intensive care unit. Ended up going back after like 5, 6 years, went and got my master's degree to be a nurse practitioner. And I loved caring for the babies that were the size of a dollar bill. I loved that adrenaline rush. I loved it. And in 2015, my boys needed me closer to home. And I was like, yeah, I'll take one for the team. I'm going to be bored off my butt, but I will go to the little hospital that's close to where we live. And that's where I'll work just because you need me there. Not just, but that's what I did. And when I went, it was a little 6-bed unit. I was used to working in a 100-bed unit where you took care of babies that were less than a pound. And I'm taking care of, big babies. And my eyes were really open because 6-bed unit, we'd have 5 or 6 babies withdrawing at one time. And this is in my community, like 5 miles away from where I live. And I'm like, where are these babies coming from? And it wasn't like just once, it was continuous. And I ended up calling my peers at my other hospital I'd work at. And I'm like, how many babies do you have withdrawing there? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, I honestly, I need you to like stop and count how many on each of you guys' teams. How many do you have? And okay, so we had 8 teams, but everyone had 1 or 2 babies. And it was like, you have a dozen babies that are withdrawing that honestly were not our focus at all.
And that was only in your town.
Say that one more time.
That was only in your town.
Yeah, that was just in my and that
That's
was actually
wild.
that was just one of the hospitals. Then I started calling just in our East Valley of Phoenix, counting the other hospitals, and I did it about every 6 weeks. And there were usually 18 to 24 babies withdrawing just in our East Valley of Phoenix, Arizona, which is insane. And then it kind of came a mission of going, okay, you guys, we're totally missing the ball. We're not serving a population that even has any priority at all. Honestly, I was the nurse. I was the nurse practitioner that you give me a baby that's going to cry for 12 hours. This is not a good day. I don't want to take care of this baby that's going to cry. And I also don't want to care for parents that are homeless, that did this to their baby. I did not understand opiate use disorder or substance use disorder. I didn't understand mental health. When you go to school to be a doctor, unless you're going in behavioral health or a nurse, you learn medical. You don't learn behavioral health. If we need behavioral health help, we do a consult to, a professional to do that.
Right.
I don't take care of that. And my eyes were just really open because 24 babies at any given time, just in our East Valley, we are totally not serving them correctly. And I ended up finding out that, gosh, if it's quiet in our nursery, so say we didn't have 6 babies, say we only had 2, and we had enough staff at certain parts of the day with certain nurses or certain doctors, the babies did better. And it was like, okay, how come they're doing better when Deb is on, but when Georgina's on, they're not good? Why is that? And yes, babies have, different times of the day where they're having a more difficult time, but there was a pattern. And you really were like, boy, okay, if Deb's on, they do great. You never need to give them, extra morphine, usually can wean. But then at night you would find between 2 and 5 a.m. I had a dad, 3 sets of parents, telling me about the last dad, who was an adoptive dad that we had taken care of his previous baby, um, probably about 18 months prior. All of them told me at several occasions that they were not going to leave their baby that next night. And I was like, "What do you? No, we don't have a place for you to stay. Why don't you feel comfortable with us?" And every one of them, not until the adoptive dad said it, did it make me go, "We've got to do better," which shame on me because I don't think I'm biased, but obviously I am. But when they said they weren't going to leave because we were going to give their baby medicine, morphine is what we treat them with, and that they'll never get out of here, that was an eye opener.
Mm.
They all three said between 2 and 5 in the morning, "You're going to give my baby more medication." And I was like, "No, no, we're not." Well, guess what? When you look back at the data, you went, "Gosh, by golly, we do." At 2:30, 3:40, 3:45, we are giving way more doses of medication, bumping up the amount. And just think, we're tired. I mean, kind of edgy on a night shift. You have these babies that are crying. You don't have enough staff because it's the night shift. It just wasn't a good environment. And gosh darn it, we could do better, and our babies deserve more. And that's where it all started.
What is I want to get kind of reframe this for everybody, and you're the perfect person to talk about this. What is NAS truly like through the eyes of a newborn? Help us feel what these babies experience, especially like you're talking there in those first critical weeks.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. Well, one mom dumbed down withdrawal to me as the worst flu and migraine times 100. So imagine when I have the flu, I want it to end as quick as possible. I just want to fall asleep. And when I wake up, I want to feel better. So imagine a newborn being born within 24 hours of age, all of a sudden going from being able to eat and loving food to being sick to their stomach, throwing up, having horrible GI symptoms, diaper rashes that follow the diarrhea that they have, not being able to sleep, increased tone, your bones ache, all of the things. Imagine that, but then also add on that you don't have your mom there or you don't have your dad. And you're all by yourself in this really bright environment, because that's where we care for babies that are unwell in the hospital. It would be like you and I going to a rock concert. We wouldn't go to a rock concert if we were withdrawing. If we had the flu, we would be quiet, dark environment. And so I just honestly, for a baby, like to really think about it, what they're going through, it's has to be miserable. They just look like they hurt. They have like a furrowed brow, so like such a serious brow, even when they're sleeping, and they look like they're in a deep sleep, but it's just a grimace. Like, I just don't feel good. And I can't imagine doing that without your most near and dear.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I was because when you think of withdrawals, we always think of adults withdrawing, and a lot of us may have had family members or something that we've seen or kind of are heard or watched, movies with that. But to think of it as like you come into this world withdrawing, and then you guys have to kind of like ease it off and play around with, to try to get that. How long does it take a baby before they're fully withdrawn? I mean,
Every baby is different. The national average of acute, like the really hard withdrawal across the nation, is about 22 days for them to get through. So imagine you have the flu or COVID for 22 days. All of us would think we were going to die
die.
if it
Yeah,
was that
exactly.
long. At Hushabye, our quiet, dark environment with one-to-one caregivers, with everybody understanding that, guess what? Moms are the best medicine. And so we have to make them feel comfortable, to trust us, and to feel safe to be able to be there to parent their baby. But we do it in 8 days. We
Holy
get them
smokes.
through that really hard withdrawal for 8 days. There is some literature that shows that intermittent withdrawal symptoms, which could look like colic, so it's kind of hard to tell as they get older. Intermittently, there's a couple of studies that are saying that they will show signs of withdrawal up to 9 months
Mm.
after being born. Talking with families, we know that these babies are really hypersensitive from the get-go. And so you kind of just go, is that withdrawal, or is that this baby's personality that they can't handle like tons going on? But if we can make the acute even one day shorter, I know that I would like my flu to be 1 day shorter. We should.
What do you think is there? I know culturally there would be, and the environment also would be damaging, if the parents aren't getting help. But a child 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, if you remove the environment, and I know that's got to be a high percentage, but if you remove the environment, is it detrimental to their growth,
They're
and maturing?
developmental. We believe that there is a link between developmental delays and deficits. We believe that they're a little bit more hyperactive. And again, it's hard to take the environment, out